Leave it to the greatness that is Charles Barkley to leave us NBA fans, us hoop junkies entertained during the doldrums of the offseason. These are the slow times, folks. And again, I've got some funny sound I'm going to play for you. And the NBA schedule came out. I'm not big on that. And there's a reason, very clear reason why I will never dedicate an episode to the schedule because everyone can see it. It's an 82-game season. But there are a few things that I did cherry pick that I thought would be of interest for a program. It's Friday. I want the audience to join me if you've got anything on your mind. I'm posting that link. Again, all our live shows are on YouTube. Just come join the party. It's Friday, folks. The week's over. And it's time to kick back, relax, and enjoy the golden days.
They always find something to nitpick, and that's because there's expectations for us to win. It was a pretty crazy night.
Woo! Let's go! In a minute, I'ma need a sentimental man or woman to pump me up. Come on and break me off. Cause I get what I want and I like what I see. If you got
Happy Friday. It's Friday. Thank you for joining the Golden Days. That's the name of the program. I'm your host, Cyrus Saatsaz. You can follow me on Threads at DogWild. Same handle for Instagram. Same company. I'm also over on Elon's cesspool of an excuse for a social media platform. You could follow me there at Surf Journalist. Hello. Happy Friday, folks, and welcome to the program. Before we get started, I have to give some love real fast to the official sponsor, hopefully one of many currently in negotiations. I'm really excited about that for some more clients coming on board soon. But for now, I've got one live read, and I'm going to always make the best of it, and that is Bet Online. They're the world's most trusted betting platform, and they're also your number one source for everything football. That's right, folks. Football is back from the preseason NFL to college kicking off. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. Think you know your stuff? Get in on a winner-take-all $300,000 NFL Survivor pool for the upcoming season. And when the game is over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of over 150 slot games. So head to the website today and use the promo code BELIEVE. It's spelled BLEAV to get that beautiful discount and get in on the action. Bet online. The game starts here. And again, welcome everybody. I'm putting the link to the chat right now in case any of you wants to join the show. Because I always love the feedback and participation that comes from the audience. So if you want to join in, again, the link is now available. But let's start things off first and foremost with my boy, Charles Barkley. He's not actually my boy, but I do hope someday soon to get him on this program. He's an absolute delight when it comes to entertaining the masses, talking hoops, and then some. Well, he was recently on Dan Le Batard's program. Dan Le Batard, the former ESPN personality. I think he's also a former journalist with the Miami Herald, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if he's still writing for him. But he had Charles Barkley on the show, and the conversation was lively for a couple reasons. The topic was brought up of Kendrick Perkins, fellow former NBA big, and that's pretty much where the correlation ends, whereas Charles Barkley is a former Hall of Famer, former MVP, two-time gold medalist. Kendrick Perkins is a former champion, but that's the extent. And Perkins criticized Barkley's take on Steve Kerr's coaching, and more specifically, the whole Jason Tatum fiasco, where we got two DNPs, and Charles Barkley and Draymond Green both came out, and the Draymond Green stuff was especially fascinating in my book, given he plays for Steve Kerr. But while the majority of those disgruntled out there when it comes to Jason Tatum's DNPs were Boston Celtics fans, folks like Draymond Green, folks like Charles Barkley were also coming out talking about how ludicrous it is that one of the game's best players is getting DNPs. And why don't we listen to this exchange? Because Dan Le Batard brought up the fact that Kendrick Perkins called him out on national TV. You can imagine Barkley did not take kindly to that. So again, why don't we take a listen to Chuck and hear his thoughts on being blasted publicly by Kendrick Perkins, and then this is the first time we've heard him, at least I've heard him, expand on his criticism of Steve Kerr in terms of why he disagreed with the decision to give Jason Tatum, a reigning 3-time first-team All-NBA player, reigning world champion, and he got DNPs. Let's hear what Chuck had to say about all of that.
You said you were critical of Kerr, and you said that that team should not be tested. And Kendrick Perkins said that was an asinine take. That of course,
well, first of all, don't bring up a guy who averaged 5 points a game. I'm not going to stoop to his level. You average 5 points a game, shut the hell up. Dan, let me ask you a question. Who was the second best player on Serbia?
No, buddy. Look. I don't think they should have been tested either.
No, my question was: number one, they got Joker, but the second best player on their team was Bogdanovic. Does Bogdanovic make the United States Olympic team? Under no circumstances he make the Olympic team. I think they played too slow because you could see what Joker was doing. He was milking the clock. He would take the ball out of bounds and roll it up the court. They turned the 40-minute game basically into like a 35 to 37-minute game. So they let them play slow. I think they should have played a lot faster. And you know that every time we say something now, people go crazy. There's no reason for him not to play Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum would have been the second best player on Serbia. Probably would have been the best player on France. For him not to get any minutes in 2 games, come on, man, that wasn't right. That wasn't fair. If you go into the Olympics, you want to play.
Yeah, so those are Chuck's thoughts, expanding a little bit on Jason Tatum getting those DNPs. And again, in hindsight, regardless of what your thoughts on the decision by Steve Kerr to not play Jason Tatum those 2 games and the sporadic minutes otherwise, Team USA did get gold. I highlighted that because that clip, not so much about the Barkley comments on Jason Tatum, even though I do agree with them, but the fact that for the second time, him and Kendrick Perkins have had this public spat. And I've spoken to a lot of, maybe a lot's exaggerating a little bit, but I've spoken to some former NBA players when it comes to Kendrick Perkins. And a lot of people just are really bewildered by the fact that Perkins has this platform on ESPN. It's a little shocking to a lot of people that the management at ESPN picked Kendrick Perkins and to literally have a job as one of the quote unquote experts and pundits covering the NBA, considering Perkins, you know, as Barkley mentioned, averaged 5 points a game. I think he actually averaged 5.2 for his career more specifically. But he does say a lot of outlandish things. And what I took away from that brief clip there, and the reason why I even played it on the show today, is because I wanted to just pose a friendly reminder to folks out there. When you look at any individual on the planet who's expressing opinions or who's just talking and just saying whatever's on their mind, like, for example, Kendrick Perkins on ESPN. And if you ever think to yourself, I'm going to give this individual who's talking credence because they're on this platform, like because they work for ESPN, they work for the Washington Post, so they must be some sort of expert, or they work for, let's make it on a more micro level here in the San Francisco Bay Area. Let's say we're talking Warriors, and you're thinking to yourself, well, this person on the radio who gets paid by a radio station that is the official flagship station of the Golden State Warriors. Let's use someone there as an example, right? I just want you to remember one very clear thing. That person is there because some fat cat in a suit decided so, right? You look at everyone in these positions, whether it's television, whether it's radio, whether it's prominent platforms on digital streaming services or websites or YouTube or wherever it is. Always think twice before you defer to someone just because some fat cat in a suit. And when I say fat, more times than not, they are fat. They're in that position because a fat cat said so. And in no way, shape, or form does that mean that that individual suddenly has more credibility, is suddenly much more of an expert. 9 times out of 10, these people are hired not because they're the most qualified, but because they know the right person. Or maybe they're the best ass kisser. Or maybe the person in charge is just incompetent and has no vision, or has no foresight, or has a very limited acumen. I had a source for years in ESPN tell me time and time and again, and they're no longer with ESPN, but they were there for a very long time, and I'd hear a lot of fascinating things coming out of Bristol from this individual. And one thing that is universally shared in the studios, in the building at Bristol, and when I say Bristol, I'm referring to ESPN. That's where they're headquartered. I know they have studios in New York and LA and all over the world, but Bristol is the home base. And the decision makers for their NBA content is certainly not respected. And behind the scenes, a lot of producers there shake their heads. They cringe. Think back to the Rachel Nichols fiasco a few years back when she accidentally left her feed on in her hotel room. This was during the bubble, and this is when the NBA was quarantined in Orlando, and we had the bubble championship and all that, and you had select media members on location covering the NBA there. And Rachel Nichols forgot to shut off a feed that was going back to ESPN, and so producers there were not only listening to everything she had to say, but they could record everything, and she got herself in massive hot water, and eventually she I don't know the details whether she was forced out or what happened there, but soon after she was out. And the whole point of bringing that up is because these folks at ESPN, and maybe it's one person, maybe it's a select few that's ultimately making these final decisions for the ESPN personalities, right? And it is a shit show. I mean, I'm sorry, Jason Williams, that is always the name that comes up the most, right? Like why is Jason Williams being paid by ESPN to be an expert? Why are so many and Jason Williams did not do much in the NBA. He was a fantastic college player. I think he was like the number 2 pick in the NBA draft out of Duke, but didn't do a damn thing in the pros, has some strong opinions. And whereas you have a network like TNT that puts on their show Hall of Famer Charles Barkley, Hall of Famer Shaquille O'Neal. Kenny Smith is not a Hall of Famer, but he was a fantastic player, averaged over 20 points a game. I think multiple seasons, won 2 titles with the Houston Rockets. And the point is, whereas you have a platform like TNT, like Draymond Green would be a successor if TNT had a long-term future in the NBA, right? They're picking folks who have proven on the court that they can succeed, and that is credibility, right? That carries over a little bit. But over on ESPN, you have Jason Williams. You have Kendrick Perkins, who did not have the most accomplished NBA career. I mean, it's not like he has a lot of accolades on his resume, right? And so that's what ESPN does. They employ people who just either are there for nepotistic reasons. Some of them are obvious. And then you have folks who are there, like the Jason Williams, like the Kendrick Perkins, like Austin Rivers. And I just want everyone there to be reminded, just because someone is paying them to do it does not mean they're good at doing it. Because oftentimes those decision makers In academia, there's actually a theory that's applicable to this. It's called gatekeeping theory, which implies that a select few people control all the power when it comes to the information we get, and also have all the power in terms of deciding who those individuals are that are not only giving us information, but are also deciding the agenda for what's important. And so I can understand Charles Barkley being very irritated at that someone like Kendrick Perkins is calling him out publicly. It's like, who the hell are you? And just because some clown at ESPN decided he's going to be good, now you have all this influence, you have all this power, and the same applies to the local market as well. Just because someone's working for one of these radio stations does not automatically mean they know what the hell they're talking about. I was informed the other day that a couple of hosts at said radio station, the official flagship of the Warriors, was going off on some sort of diatribe. And I hope they weren't thinking of me when they were saying this, because I haven't lived with my parents since I was 17 years old, for starters. But I guess they went off on a rant about how, podcasters and people who do this in their parents' basement, like, why do they have influence? Why should people listen to them? And my response is, why should people listen to you? Because some fat cat decided you're going to be good on the radio? No, that is asinine, man. From the vast majority of these people who are getting paychecks, again, are doing so and getting them for all the wrong reasons. Whether it's to fill quotas, whether it's to get someone in there that'll make their own life easy by not being challenged, even though one of the core principles that you are taught in management, whether it's at a business school, whether it's in military, whether it's in sports, is when you're choosing a good leader, the best individual you can choose is someone who's smarter than you, someone who doesn't act in deference to you. Not yes men and women, not ass kissers. And it's just representative of just a very toxic climate, and maybe a smaller sample size of a bigger issue in this world full of toxic individuals who have a tremendous amount of power, unfortunately. But anyways, I just wanted to remind people that just because some fat cat has decided they're going to hire this individual does not mean that individual is suddenly smarter or more qualified. Far from the truth. And that certainly applies to someone like Kendrick Perkins. And that certainly applies to a hell of a lot of people here in the Bay Area who think that just because they're being paid by a corporation, that they're somehow better than the next person who may be in their parents' basement. And this is my own home, by the way, just so you know. The Warriors' schedule came out, and I could care less about schedules. To me, schedules, it's like, okay, great. We now know what the 80 games are that the team is going to play this coming season. Okay. We talked about the fact that November 12th is going to be a big one because Klay Thompson is coming back to San Francisco and it's going to be playing at Chase Center. Should be interesting in and of itself. That should be a fun game. But overall, I took a look at it. My one thought on the schedule is this, because the start of the season for the Golden State Warriors concerns me. It concerns me greatly because as of right now, I don't have a lot of faith in this roster. It's incredibly wing heavy, incredibly light on size, incredibly light on secondary scoring. I still don't know who picks up the slack offensively when Stephen Curry sits on the bench. And Steph's minutes have to go down this year if you're going to preserve him for spring, right? If you're going to preserve him for an entire season. And so, the hope is that, okay, the Warriors haven't made a move, even though the way this roster is constructed, it doesn't make sense without another move. And that the team might be waiting until February 6th, which is when the trade deadline is, and hoping that maybe some sort of player falls through the cracks, an individual may be disgruntled. Maybe it's a team that no longer sees this person as a good fit, and that maybe someone will emerge in the market that the team can trade for once the season has started. And I don't take a lot of comfort in that for a couple of reasons. One is the Warriors rarely, if ever, make midseason trades to begin with. And now suddenly that's what we're relying on is for the team to do something that they've rarely ever done. But the bigger concern for me is the fact that the Warriors the last 2 years have not gotten off to good starts. And which is very different than the history of the team when they've been successful at year's end. Their title seasons started off spectacularly. The last 2 years, not so much. When the Warriors approached the trade deadline last year, there were 3 games below 500. And my concern is if this is the strategy that the Warriors are taking, that they're just going to wait and see what the best deal is out there that could emerge at some point. It might be too late if you're going to wait until January, February. You might be so deep in a hole that once again, you're fighting just to get a play-in at that point. And Steph is not getting any younger, right? So, but I looked at the schedule just to see, okay, is the schedule front-loaded this year? Because last year, the Warriors had the most difficult start to the season in terms of strength of schedule. And which is part of the reason why they started the year, or at least at the trade deadline last year, there were 3 games below 500. Ryan, thank you so much in the chat. Saying great show as always. Thank you, sir or miss. Ryan can be a multi-gender name, I suppose, right? I've seen some males and females using the word Ryan, but I digress. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you. And again, the link is in the chat today. It's a little quiet in the chat. I'm guessing Friday afternoon. I don't normally record live shows at 5 p.m. and change on a Friday, so I apologize if that's a bad time. But the link is in the chat if anyone wants to jump on with me today and express anything on your mind. But going back to the schedule. This year, and again, this is just from an initial impression, and there are a lot of toss-up games in that schedule, right? Like, for example, when you look at the Warriors and the Grizzlies, can you say definitively that the Warriors are a favorite? No. Can you say they're an underdog? No, that's a toss-up. Same goes for the Rockets. Same goes for the Spurs. Same goes for the Clippers. And the Warriors have a lot of those kinds of games in the early schedule in the first half. They also have a lot of Eastern Conference opponents. That's a good thing, right? Far weaker competition in the East. So that's my one takeaway from the schedule is that the beginning of it in terms of strength of schedule doesn't look as daunting as it did a year ago. And so if the strategy for the Warriors is let's wait until we pull a trade, let's wait for the best player out there. Let's hold our chips. Let's keep our cards to our chest. I can only hope that they can survive until that point with a decent record so that they don't fall too deep behind the top teams. Now, a couple things I want to show you real fast. The NBA schedule, I think, highlights 80 games because last year they debuted the midseason tournament. I think they call it the NBA Cup. And the odds makers, and I'm going to be focused, and there's going to be a lot of gambling talk on this show for a lot of reasons. Just because when you start delving into the gambling side of things, the analytics reveal a lot. The odds makers are brilliant. The folks in Vegas who set these lines, the vast majority of them have PhDs in statistics. Their entire brains are formed to study probabilities. And when they set a line, I respect it. These are people who have done their research. They're also taking into account, obviously, the public mood because that plays a huge part in this. But there is a fascination in terms of the gambling aspect of sports. And when you look at the money behind sports, over half comes from gambling. It's never going away, folks. The reason why it was legalized is because of how many people do it. And power players decided, enough. If everyone's doing this, we might as well get some money out of it as well. But anyway, so the point is the gambling stuff, there will be some shows dedicated to that. We'll have some handicappers on the program. Still fun topics of discussion. I bring it up because the odds makers decided to set the odds for Group C of the NBA Cup. That is the group. There are 6 of them total. They reorganized the conferences for group play. And so the odds were set for every team within their respective group. And let me show you what I mean for the YouTube viewers and obviously for the podcast listeners. I'm going to articulate and enunciate everything I'm talking about here. But I just want to show you this graphic and introduce this graphic as a reminder of just how damn difficult the Western Conference is. The Warriors in Group C this year for the midseason tournament, aka the Emirates NBA Cup. The 5 teams are the Denver Nuggets, the Dallas Mavericks, the Memphis Grizzlies, the New Orleans Pelicans, and your Golden State Warriors. And the odds to win Group C are as follows. The favorite are the Denver Nuggets, plus 275. That means if you bet $100, you would win $275. And if that plus, and I apologize if this is obvious to you folks, but a lot of you, I'm guessing, are not familiar with the nomenclature pertaining to sports betting. So apologies for if it's basic information to you, but real fast, that plus there, if it says plus 275, that means if you bet 100, you win 275. 100 is always the baseline for these numbers. If you see a minus next to that, if that number, for example, was minus 275, that means if you bet, that means you have to bet $275 to win 100. So when you see the plus, immediately what that tells you is you're getting better odds than you would if it was a minus. And the Nuggets are the favorites. Again, plus 275. The reigning Western Conference champions, the Dallas Mavericks, are second, plus 300. The Memphis Grizzlies are third, plus 350. The New Orleans Pelicans are tied for third with Memphis, plus 350. And then the Golden State Warriors are dead last at plus 500. And the odds makers put them well back there in terms of dead last. And stuff like this is why I am concerned about the Warriors. The odds makers see it. They're also setting these lines based on how the public feels. And I know there's some optimistic Warriors fans out there, and I respect it, who think that this roster is currently constructed is going to make some noise this year. But I'm skeptical, man. I am wildly skeptical. And yeah, Nate Productions, who says, what a tough group, Cyrus. Absolutely. But you know what? Every group is tough in the Western Conference. 13 of the 15 teams in the West are going to be playoff contenders this year. That doesn't include Utah and Portland. Who knows what they're going to do? They might even make some noise. So this is just to give you an idea of how difficult the West is, how the odds makers see the Warriors in the West, and how the Warriors as currently constructed. I'm telling you, man, if the only hope that I have for this team is Kuminga and Podziemski taking a drastic leap. Yeah, and Ryan is adding to the chat that we're only going to win if Steph goes crazy. And he might, you're right. My point, though, is why put this much of a burden on Steph? Like why put Stephen Curry, one of the greatest players to ever play this game? If you're a Warriors fan, you're so lucky to have had him on your team for the last 15 years and counting. And this is how you reward his service? By surrounding with a team that odds makers think is going to be one of the worst in the West? So I wanted to point that out real fast. And again, we're going to be talking a lot of gambling this year. And one other number that's important to know too is in terms of future projections for wins, the over-under for Warriors wins this year, 43.5. So that means the odds makers think that the Warriors are going to be winning 43 to 44 games, which if that was the Warriors record last year, I got to look up the standings now. I don't think they even make the play-in. Got to look that up just to confirm real fast, but I'm a little worried, folks, is what I'm trying to say. I am a little worried. If the Warriors were 44 and 38 last year, they're still a play-in team. Okay, because the team below the Warriors last year were the Houston Rockets, who finished 41 and 41. So that's how Vegas and that's how a lot of people think the Warriors are going to do this year. Now, the good news, I will finish the show with some good news this year. With today, I'm sorry. It's Friday. It's Friday. Get ready, folks, for a beautiful weekend. I hope you go out there and just relax, have fun. Whatever it is you do, make it the time of your life. I want to also add real fast that Hall of Famer Rick Barry and I might host an episode of the Rick Barry Show this weekend. If we do, the live version of that is always available on the Mic'd Up app. Simple app. It's free. If you're watching this on YouTube, that's how you spell it right there. MIC 'D space UP, Mic'd Up. Rick and I do all our shows live there. And Rick Barry did a great interview recently because he hosts a podcast with the Big Three, Ice Cube's venture. And he recently had Steven Jackson, on his show. Fantastic interview. Rick is great at interviewing other people. And he also has one of the most ridiculous Rolodexes on earth. That guy's phone has contact information for literally 95%. I shouldn't say literally because there's no exact science to this, but he has phone numbers and contact information for some of the most prominent human beings on the planet. And I saw that interview and I thought to myself, Rick, let's get let's use that Rolodex of yours. Let's get some big guests on this program. And so Rick is working on that. And if we do that, it's going to be huge guests. And again, every episode of the Rick Barry Show, it's live on the Mic'd Up app. And then we turn it around and publish it here with Golden Days. So stay tuned for that. One final thing with the schedule. And this is symbolic of just how powerful and influential and popular Stephen Curry is. And this is the stat that represents how many nationally televised games of the Warriors will have this year. Because the Warriors, again, very good chance they're going to be a play-in team. Very good chance they might not even make the playoffs. Another team in a very similar situation to them, the LA Lakers. They might not even make the playoffs. They've had I don't want to say a similar offseason because the Warriors actually did make moves. I feel like LA was incredibly stagnant, but both teams are in a position where I think their fan bases want more. I think if you're a fan of Steph and LeBron, you want them to have more support, for them to have more reinforcements around them. But the whole point of me bringing those two up is the world still loves them. And this is entertainment, folks, first and foremost. These are the most games on national TV by NBA teams. And I personally love this because every time the Warriors are on national television, you get to get a new perspective in terms of broadcasting. What I mean by that is, and I mean no disrespect to Bob Fitzgerald, who I go way back with. I know we get some heat out there and some criticism for, possibly being a homer, but Fitz is my boy. I like him a lot. I think Kalena Azubuike is actually fantastic at his job as well. Another person who's going to be on the show at some point soon, by the way, is Jim Barnett, who I just thought of him because he was Kalena Azubuike's predecessor. But the whole point is, for me, it's nice to get different perspectives. It's nice to learn new things. And when the Warriors are on national television, You're getting a different broadcast team. You're getting the national viewpoint. You're getting the non-Warriors homer viewpoint. No disrespect to Fitz. Again, Fitz, you're my boy. You and I go way back. You've been on this show before. Actually, I should try to get Fitz back on the show again. It's been a long time. It's been a few years. But the point is, I dig these national games, man. And plus you get like the pre and post game studio shows covering the Warriors. So they're giving you some extra insights. And I'm going to go in reverse order because if you're listening to this on the podcast, it'll be a surprise. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the graphic, obviously. But in terms of teams with the most games on national television, the Dallas Mavericks, the reigning Western Conference champs, have 30 games on national TV this year. And when we say national TV, we're referring to ESPN, ABC, TNT, and I don't know if NBA TV counts in this. I'm going to guess no. So it's probably, I'm guessing it's based on those three. So Dallas, despite winning the Western Conference title this year, don't have the most games on national TV. They got 30, still a good amount. They're tied with the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns also have 30 nationally televised games this year. Side note, by the way, speaking of the Phoenix Suns, I'm a little worried about them. And good evening, Stoik. Right back at you. I'm a little worried about the Phoenix Suns this year. And the reason being is there's two huge reasons for that. One is we all saw what Devin Booker did in the Olympics. I don't think Kevin Durant has much more growth in his game. You never know. But I believe those were Durant's fourth Olympics. He's already the all-time leading scorer in the Olympics. So I don't know if Kevin Durant's Olympic experience is going to result in significant growth in his game, whether as an individual or as a player. Devin Booker, on the other hand, I could see him being even better this year. Not to mention him and Kevin Durant's chemistry probably improved a little bit from playing together on the Olympics. And so the Suns worry me there in the sense that Devin Booker probably just got better. And on top of that, I still don't know how the hell the Phoenix Suns got Tyus Jones. They got Tyus Jones for barely above the veteran minimum. The Warriors spent their entire mid-level exception, nearly $13 million on DeAnthony Melton. We'll find out if that was money well spent this year. But when you see the Warriors spending almost $13 million on DeAnthony Melton, and then the Phoenix Suns got Tyus Jones, a player who, in my opinion, is of damn near equal caliber. Tyus Jones can play. And the Suns, who a lot of people thought their biggest issue was a lack of a proper point guard / facilitator, just got a good one for practically free. And damn, that bums me out. So they worry me. Anyways, the Phoenix Suns will also have 30 nationally televised games. The New York Knicks, who are officially my favorite Eastern Conference team at the moment, they have 34 nationally televised games, and they're tied with the reigning world champion Boston Celtics, who also has 34 nationally televised games. I'll save that just reminded me of Noah Lyles, by the way, and that dude spews a lot of ignorance, and we'll talk about that in a future show because that dude actually opened his mouth to talk about Stephen Curry, and no surprise, it lacked any form of intellectual substance. I'll save that for another day. And I thought of that because of Noah Lyles criticizing people who call NBA champions, world champions, the best players in the world all play in the NBA. It is not ridiculous to call them world champions. Anyway, so the Celtics are third with 34 nationally televised games, and then the top two teams. And this reflects just how popular and how good Stephen Curry and LeBron James are. That these two teams have the most nationally televised games this year. The Warriors have 36 of their 82 games. Of their 80, you might get some extra ones from the play-in tournament. So the 36 nationally televised games for the Warriors, second most. And then the Los Angeles Lakers have the most nationally televised games in the NBA with 39. Bruce Morrow in the chat. Haven't heard from you in a while. Good to see you. Saying Pods and Kuminga will be better. I don't disagree with that. They better be a hell of a lot better. And Bruce, I've heard you comment on this before, and I agree with you. We're in agreement here, man. We're on the same page that the Terry Stotts hiring was huge. So was the Jerry Stackhouse hiring. I very much like those two moves for the Warriors. Those moves actually pleased me more than the free agent signings, honestly, man. That to me addressed the bigger problem than personnel. But Stoic and I agree, man. I really liked the Stackhouse hiring, the Terry Stotts hiring. I wasn't as happy as I would have been if Brent Barry was the hire, but still, it's an improvement. Gross improvement over Kenny Atkinson and Bruce Frazier, who should have never been one of the top assistants. So it was nice of the Warriors to step in on that front. And if I can find it really fast here, let me see if I can pull it off. I want to play that Noah Lyles clip now. Let me see if I can find it. If I can, great. And if I can, I can't. And I'll save it for another show. Noah Lyles, and again, the reason why we're talking about him right now is because he was on Gilbert Arenas' show recently, just saying some really stupid shit. And again, this is a live show, and I'm only doing this right now because it's at the very end. So let's see if I can find it. I don't think I can. I'm trying. Oh, wait, no. I found it. All right. Nice. Here is Noah Lyles. Real fast. We'll end the show on this note. Talking about the Olympics, but more importantly, talking about who the best player in the game is today. This is absurd. Take a listen.
That's why KD can go 8 for 8. And if KD really, really, really wanted to put his foot down, he would be the MVP because he's probably the best player on the team. He's 7 foot. He can shoot just as good as Steph and carried Steph to 2 championships. So he can live through Steph's success too. Like, yeah, man, that's my man. But he know what it is. He know what it is. LeBron know what it is. Steph saying to LeBron, you know what it is. Everybody's saying to each other, you know what it is, you know what it is, you know what it is.
Yeah. And just to your point,
but who really knows what it is?
Steph and Bron know what it is. That's why KD can go 8 for 8.
Okay, so basically Noah Lyles was on Gilbert Arenas' show saying that Kevin Durant is the best player in the NBA, that Kevin Durant is the reason why USA won gold. He actually had the audacity, and again, he's just not a very bright man, clearly. Like, he had the audacity to sit there and say that Kevin Durant got Steph 2 championships. Let's talk actual reality for 1 second here before we go. If it wasn't for Steph and Curry, Kevin Durant has 0 championships. 0. And again, as I've said this before, dude, he's actually sitting here saying Kevin Durant's better than both Steph and LeBron. And again, for the last time, because Noah Lyles, and this is also another thing that really irked me when it comes to Noah Lyles. Noah Lyles took objection to sharing a stage at an event with Anthony Edwards because he doesn't think Anthony Edwards carries the same prominence, the same gravitas as Noah Lyles. That's just absurd. I mean, I get why Gilbert Arenas would bring Noah Lyles on your show. The guy just won a gold medal at the Olympics. It's a phenomenal race. That was came down to what, like a thousandth of a second in terms of the split. But for anyone who takes objection to the whole world champion thing, I've said it before and I've said it again. The best players in the world not most of them, all of them. They all play in the NBA, all of them. So if all the best players in the world are playing in this one league that officially is international, given we have a presence in Canada, technically, why would we not call it a world champion? I totally understand if like in soccer, for example, or football, however you want to call it. I can understand taking some umbrage with that because there is no one league that has all the best players. But that literally is the case in basketball. All the best players play in the NBA. Yeah, Dave Felix in the chat saying that he's an idiot. He totally is. Anyway, so I just want to play that clip real quick because how dare you slander Steph, man? Like, what are you smoking? To actually sit there and say that Kevin Durant is better. That is absurd. Kevin Durant's a fine, good player, future Hall of Famer, but not in the same league. Anything else in the who's McCants? I don't know who that is. Oh, McLeod. Okay, anyways. All right. I think that's it. Again, we might have a show this weekend with Rick Barry, and if there's a strong possibility we're going to get some heavy hitter for a guest. And when I say heavy hitter, I'm talking like maybe Bill Murray, maybe Dr. J, maybe Warriors owner Joe Lacob. I give him a wish list. We had Skip Bayless on the show a couple years ago. Maybe we'll get him back. I don't know, but stay tuned. Oh, so people in the chat are saying that was not Trey Lyles in that clip. Or I'm sorry, that was not Noah Lyles in the clip. Oh, okay. Well, if that's the case, then I stand corrected. Who was that? McCants? I don't know. I'm glad I saved that for the end of the show. Thank you, everyone. Regardless of who it was, the content was moronic. Don't slander Steph like that, man, especially after what he just did. Get out of here. I see. So Bruce Morrow, thank you for that. So Bruce is saying that was Rashad McCants in there. Okay, well, that was still different person, same idiocy. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, everyone. We'll be back at this very soon on next week's program. Just want to hype up some guests. Sophia Jones is going to be a regular guest on this program. She played D1 basketball at San Jose State. She's going to be a big name in the media industry. And the fact that we're going to have her presence on this program now before someone steals her away by offering her a lot of money, we're stoked. And this program has been lacking severely in terms of the estrogen department. So it'll be nice to mix it up. In that regard, I'm super stoked to get Sophia on the program. But more importantly, that's disrespectful. I apologize. But equally importantly, Mark Spears of ESPN. I've been messaging with him. He's going to come on the show soon, not next week, but at some point. But I have been talking with some gambling experts in case you want to win some money on the Warriors, who are going to come on the show, on the program next week. Next Wednesday at 1 p.m. will be the return of NBA Coast to Coast with my boy Casey Stern. And we're working on some really exciting guests to come on the show. I was about to drop some names, but until they're confirmed, we'll wait. Until then, yeah, so just stay tuned. Follow me on Threads. That's where I post all information about the show. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Is that it? We all good? Is it time for bye-bye? It's time for bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.